Tomorrow morning, before you fully wake up, you will probably do something that feels completely ordinary. You will walk into your kitchen, you will press a button, and within minutes, a machine will transform water, heat, and crushed beans into the drink that starts your day. Coffee. Simple, fast, almost invisible. But the machine sitting on your counter is not just an appliance. It is the final result of 500 years of human frustration. Because coffee was once a difficult, almost hostile drink to make. It was bitter, filled with floating grounds, sometimes dangerously overheated. And for centuries, people struggled with the same question. How do you capture the essence of coffee without bringing all of its problems into the cup? The answer required dangerous experiments, exploding metal, scalloped lungs from toxic steam, and one ordinary housewife who changed the world with a simple piece of paper from her son's school notebook. This is the hidden story of how humans engineered the perfect morning. I'm Evan Carter, and this is Hidden Object History. Long before coffee machines existed, coffee itself was already changing the world. The earliest coffee culture developed in Yemen during the 15th century. At first, coffee was not a luxury. It was a tool, a way to cheat sleep, a way for merchants, travelers, and scholars to continue working long after sunset. In a world ruled by the setting sun, coffee created something incredibly valuable: more time. The drink spread across the Middle East. Coffee houses appeared. People gathered to talk, trade, debate, and exchange ideas. But the earliest coffee had a serious problem. It was messy. The method was primal. Roast the beans, grind them, boil them directly in water, and drink. There was no filter, no separation, no clean finish. The coffee grounds stayed inside the cup. Every sip carried tiny pieces of the charred beans. At the bottom, the drink became thick, gritty, and bitter, almost like liquid mud. But people accepted it, because in an exhausting world, there was no better option. In the Ottoman Empire, a brewing method known today as Turkish coffee became famous. Very finely ground coffee was boiled directly in a small copper pot called a sezve. The result was strong, powerful, and full of flavor. But it was also full of sediment. Coffee was not just a drink, it was a sensory compromise. When coffee reached Europe during the 17th century, expectations began to change. Europeans wanted more than energy. They wanted refinement. Coffee became connected with wealth, intelligence, and modern life. Writers worked in coffee houses, merchants made fortunes there, political revolutions were plotted over steaming cups. Coffee became the fuel of Western civilization. But there was one problem. Civilized people did not want to drink dirt. The search for a cleaner cup had begun. The first solution was intuitive: separate the solid from the liquid. Inventors began experimenting with filters. In 18th century France, one popular design became known as the Biggin pot. The concept was straightforward. Coffee grounds were placed inside a cloth filter, hot water flowed through, and the clear liquid collected below. For the first time, people could enjoy coffee without swallowing the debris of the beans. It was a major breakthrough, but every invention creates its own ghost. The cloth filter was built to be reused, and that was exactly its fatal weakness. Over time, the fabric trapped stale coffee oils. The oils turned rancid. The cloth became a breeding ground for unpleasant smells and bitter aftertastes. A cleaner cup had created a dirtier tool. Inventors tried metal filters. They lasted longer, they were easier to clean, but they let the fine dust through. The flavor was still corrupted. Then the Industrial Revolution arrived. Factories grew larger, steam engines tore through the countryside, and naturally, inventors turned this violent new technology toward the kitchen. If steam pressure could move trains, could it also force the perfect flavor out of a coffee bean? The answer would change coffee forever, but it would also make the morning kitchen a much more dangerous place. The 19th century changed everything. Coffee was no longer just a beverage, it was a problem of high-pressure engineering. How could heat be controlled? How could water move faster? Early pressure systems, however, were unpredictable monsters. Inside primitive metal chambers, trapped steam built up enormous, unregulated force. Too little pressure produced sour, weak water. Too much pressure turned the machine into a bomb. In crowded cafes and home kitchens, early boilers would occasionally fracture. Shrapnel of brass and scalding water could disfigure a barista in seconds. Yet humanity refused to give up on the machine because speed was too addictive. In 1865, the American coffee percolator appeared. It worked by continuously cycling water. Heated water traveled upward through a central tube, spilled over the coffee, and flowed back down to be boiled again. It bubbled, it roared, it created the illusion of mechanical perfection. For generations, that rhythmic bubbling sound meant the American morning had started. But hidden inside this success was a culinary tragedy. The machine was over-extracting. By boiling the same coffee over and over, it released the harshest, most bitter compounds inside the bean. The coffee wasn't just strong, it was burnt. It was dead. Across the Atlantic, Italy was solving the problem with pure speed. In 1884, Angelo Moriondo of Turin patented a massive steam-driven beast. It forced hot water through coffee grounds in a fraction of the time. This was the birth of espresso, but these industrial machines were still too inconsistent, scorching the beans with unregulated steam. While male engineers were building heavier, louder boilers, one woman in Germany solved the century-old problem with an object that weighed less than a gram. In 1908, Melita Bentz, a housewife from Dresden, grew tired of bitter coffee and grounds between her teeth. She didn't look at steam valves or copper pipes. She looked at her son's school bag. She took a piece of porous blotting paper from his notebook, punched holes in the bottom of a brass pot, and lined it with the paper. When she poured hot water over the grounds, the paper trapped every microscopic speck of dust and bitter oil. The liquid that dripped into her cup was flawless, smooth, clear, bright, no giant machine, no explosive pressure. Just a mother in a kitchen rewriting the laws of global coffee culture with a piece of school supplies. After Melita, the final layer of the machine was conquered by electricity. In the 1970s, machines like Mr. Coffee brought the automatic drip system into millions of homes, making the process completely invisible. Then came the late 1990s and the rise of single-serve pods, Keurig and Nespresso. We traded craftsmanship for pure convenience. No mess, no cleaning, just a plastic capsule and a needle. But history has a strange way of looping back. Today, as high-tech smart coffee makers connect to our phones and use algorithms to calculate extraction, an unexpected movement is happening. People are throwing away the pods, they are returning to hand grinders, to manual pour-overs, to the exact paper filter ritual Melita Bentz invented in her kitchen. Why? Because the perfect cup of coffee was never truly about efficiency. It was about the ritual, the pause, the human connection before the chaos of the day begins. Sometimes the thing we try hardest to automate is the very experience we need to keep ourselves human. Tomorrow morning, when you press that button or pour that water, remember, you are not just waking up. You are invoking 500 years of industrial accidents, corporate wars, and a mother's quiet genius, all contained within a single, ordinary cup. I'm Evan Carter, and this has been Hidden Object History. If you want to uncover the dark, hidden origins of the everyday objects around you, hit subscribe. See you next week.